Hello, this is Virtua Fighter 3tb. I think I've got it on default difficulty, normal mode. Let's just go. So, I hadn't really planned on playing this today, but then there came and went it was a Game Awards show or something, and I'll be gosh darn if they didn't show an actual teaser trailer for an actual new Virtua Fighter game. Not this Virtua Fighter 5 Revo thing that they managed to distract everybody with. No, it was an actual new Virtua Fighter game, and I hadn't believed. I had not wanted to get my hopes up or my fears up. So now, I took one last look at the trailer, the teaser, right before I came to record this, and now I'm worried. Anyway, so what it was, and I'll link to a video that basically shows you everything we know so far, which is like 5 or 10 seconds of kind of low-res gameplay footage, or what is made to look like gameplay footage, and then a couple sort of 3D model rotating views of two characters. So it doesn't even have a name yet. They just called it New Virtua Fighter Project. Of course, some people are calling it Virtua Fighter 6, but that's just kind of a convenience. I mean, it does look like, well, and it is really probably a reboot of the series, because, I mean, the Virtua Fighter series was made by Sega AM2 for the arcades. But Sega AM2, as far as I can tell, isn't really around anymore. Some of the people who worked on some of the original Virtua Fighter games are still with Sega in various capacities, but the ones who are there are split up, and they're doing all kinds of other stuff that are not fighting games. Maybe some of them are actually now in the Gotoku Studio. I can't say Gotoku. The vowel, the O, the double O, and then, I don't know, I can't do the vowels. Anyway, maybe some of them are there, but it's probably largely a new team. And you know, people had always talked about, oh, there's going to be another Virtua Fighter, blah, blah. It was like, who's going to, I mean, you can't just keep doing this series that Sega AM2's been doing. It would be a complete folly for anybody else to try to pick up this series and you know, move forward from what AM2 had done, because it would just be so hard to capture all the detail and meticulous craft that they put into it and then take it forward in a meaningful way. You could maybe hope at best to do like a mediocre clone, you know? So it had to be a reboot, right, if they were going to do something. And also it kind of had to be a reboot because Virtua Fighter hasn't been a commercial success since like 3tb came out for Dreamcast in Japan. That was kind of the last time they actually had like a sales hit, right? Some of them probably did okay in the arcade, but arcade revenue isn't really super relevant anymore. So yeah, you know, it's kind of crazy of Sega to try to do another Virtua Fighter game, taking all that into consideration. But hey, I'm glad that Sega's still willing to take some risks. I mean, I guess they're getting enough cash from Like a Dragon and those Atlas RPGs and whatever else they're doing these days that they can go a little crazy and try something like this. So anyway, the trailer did not start impressively. It was just the teaser. It was just a lot of kind of shots of very detailed ground and maybe some skyline or something. It looked like a sort of like a spaghetti western version of a Japanese ghost town or something, you know, like an old west Japanese town. And like, even so, Akira's in it, and he's pretty much dressed like Clint Eastwood from You know, the old spaghetti westerns. He's almost got like a poncho. He's got kind of a scruffy western style hat. Akira himself is scruffy. Somebody mentioned that maybe I read it, some article that he's older. And that hadn't really struck me, but he's definitely scruffy, kind of scruffy looking and, you know, weathered. So I guess that adds up to him looking older. So it's kind of this weird, well, not weird, but kind of this older, Old West Akira Yuki. And this woman who I'm sure everybody at first took to be Sarah Bryant, because she looks, I mean, she's a tall, slender, blonde woman in a skin-tight, you know, fighting suit, which is pretty much Sarah Bryant. But it turns out in the 3D model they showed, they had a label on that said Stella. That's something like a bridge between worlds or a bridge between something or other. So it's like, okay, what's the deal with this Stella? So at any rate, it looks like, also, given that they showed a lot of this sort of detailed world, and so it seems like it implies from the footage at least that this world will be fleshed out and kind of a factor in the game, whereas like in this game and all the other early Virtua Fighters, there really is no world. It's Virtua Fighter, right? It's just these sort of disconnected settings for battles. So it seems the teaser seems to imply that there will be some sort of story, because there's some sort of thing to account for. Well, there may not be, but there's, you know, you would think there's some sort of explanation for why is Akira maybe older, maybe has a different outlook on the world. Why is there this woman who looks like Sarah but is apparently not Sarah? And she did look like, if you look closely at her facial features, you could say that she looks a little different than we've ever seen Sarah, just in terms of the way her facial features are rendered, but it could just be, you know, they didn't have the polygons to use on a Sarah before, and they're just interpreting a face differently, because it's not like Sarah had some kind of distinctive facial features, aside from just being a traditionally attractive white blonde woman. Oh no, wow, he just pulled some, I'm gonna call lag on that one. Oh no. Oh no. I can't just talk and not pay attention to what's going on. But, so them doing a Virtua Fighter, or, well, not them, because it's not Sega AM2 anymore, it's not really them, it's a new team, or at least probably largely new. Doing something with single-player focus would be a big departure for Virtua Fighter, of course, which always seemed dead set on not having any single-player, not having any story. Like the crazy video you unlock at the end of this game, showing some little scenes of individual characters, is kind of the most story you've ever gotten in a Virtua Fighter. Oh, I'm dead. So yeah, that would be, you know, that would be something new. And it's kind of something, again, they have to do. Like, if you're going to get a bigger market, you can't just not have any single player, really. Not these days. Not unless you did something really, well, I mean, there are games that are very successful doing online only, but those aren't fighting games for the most part, right? Or for any part. Anyway, so, you know, these are all ostensibly the correct moves. Giving it fancy graphics, of course, you're gonna have to do that. But what really struck me the first time I saw it, once it got to the actual action part, was like, well, at first I thought I was very sort of struck by how different it seemed. And it kind of, and there was this person on the forum who was like, they're really going for like a martial arts movie, like pacing to it, and this very intricate series of, you know, kind of like choreographed, like punches and parries like you might see in a Jackie Chan or Jet Li or Bruce Lee movie, between two, you know, skilled martial artists just doing some kind of intricate exchange of blows and parries and so forth. But the more I looked at it right before I came to record this, I thought, well, wait, no, this is... Because I'd read people saying, oh, this is just, like, they're just Tekken-ifying Virtua Fighter, which we already kind of saw in Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, where they friggin' put Tekken costumes in, and the director had let Harada pal up to him, and that was kind of annoying. So, is that all it is, really? Like, and somebody else I saw was saying that, like, the camera kind of felt like a Dead or Alive 2 camera, and I was like, oh no, I don't want that, because I actually, like, got motion sickness from DOA 5's camera back when I was trying to play that, because it has, like, this sort of drift in, drift out type motion to it. Unlike Virtua Fighter's camera, which is very snappy. Oh no, I'm getting steamrolled by Aoi. So, you know, is this... And so it looked very fast and slick, and, you know, this is very fast moves, but I was thinking, like, how would you control that if it was really like a kung fu movie in terms of these intricate, like, you know, moving faster than the eye can see type of thing? How would you control that? Would it just be like... Are we talking, like, button mashing chain combos? Is it like you input a move, and depending on what input your opponent does, it sort of triggers a predetermined sequence of blows or what? But I think that was all. That was me getting a little carried away with what I was actually seeing. It was probably just a slightly faster, typical 3D fighting game exchange with a bunch of motion blur. Oh no, I'm dead. With some camera shake and motion blur and stuff, and also it was not very. It was kind of washed out color and low res video. So I was really up on it for a while. I was like, wow, it's finally somebody who's doing something new. But I realized that I had this same reaction when I saw the first teaser video for the sort of the Guilty Gear Strive, whatever it was. Is that when they? It wasn't not the first Guilty Gear 3D games, but the second round that we've had in the past couple of years. When that came out, and it didn't, you know, the teaser didn't have a UI, and maybe the camera was moving a little bit more. I was thinking, oh, they're finally doing it. They're finally doing an anime fighting game like an actual anime. So you're not stuck in a HUD. You're not stuck in some kind of fixed stage geometry. You're actually just going at it like it would be like freely animated in a hand-drawn anime. That's what I want to see from an anime fighter. But no, they didn't do that. And when that game finally came out, it was just kind of another Guilty Gear game with slightly prettier graphics. So I'm a little worried that that's kind of what's going on here. And that, because, you know, in a teaser they don't have to have the HUD. They didn't have to have high resolution, so you could see really everything that was going on and so forth. So I just, my hopeful imagination fills in the blanks. This is why I don't want to let myself believe that there's, you know, going to be another Virtua Fighter game when they're just dropping hints and rumors. because then later I'll be disappointed if I let myself believe. But I was also scared all along that, well, since Sega AM2 isn't really going to be making one, I'm a little worried that, you know, the Yakuza team or whoever's going to make one might just not make a very good one. But, you know, who knows? It could all work out for the best. Maybe it will be what I thought, what I was hoping it was going to be at first. With some kind of super intricate kung fu melee combat system that actually still controls well and does, you know, takes fighting games in a direction we haven't seen, but it's probably not. Because if you think about it, I was trying to figure this out earlier, like, when is the last actual new fighting game style we had? The last one that actually, you know, was successful. I think the last one I can think of is kind of the anime fighter, you know, like Guilty Gear. That's probably different enough, you know, and it's kind of got more different approach to it. It's 2D, but different approach to it. But, you know, everything else is either Street Fighter style or Virtua Fighter style. You could, I guess, say Tekken style, but Tekken's really just a takeoff of Virtua Fighter. Same with DOA. I suppose you could say Mortal Kombat style, but I don't know. Combat's kind of its own thing. So, do I think on a more sober reflection that we're going to get an exciting new style of fighting game out of this Virtua Fighter reboot? Nah, probably not. It might be a kind of sexier Virtua Fighter, or maybe more of a Tekken-y type Virtua. I don't know. It might be rad. I mean, who knows? The thing is, like, this looks really early. Like, that was my other impression, was like, this looks really early. Because they didn't show us much. They didn't even give a name for the game yet. They didn't give an announcement date. They didn't say, like, coming in 2025 or anything, so that probably means it's not coming in 2025. I mean, maybe I'm just, again, being negative so I don't get any expectations up for myself. Also, I think maybe the other thing that makes me worry about the game is that I haven't been super into the action stuff that the Gotoku Studio has done, the Yakuza and Like a Dragon games. Well, they've actually stopped doing action in those for the most part, right? Except for mini games, maybe. But, like, I was just not into the Yakuza fighting stuff back when it used to be action-based. So, you know, I don't know. Who knows? It's still real early, but at least now we know that, yes, they are making a Virtua Fighter game, probably a reboot. They'll probably just call it Virtua Fighter. That's what I would do. I suspect it will have single-player stuff, which could be cool. Oh, heck. Let myself get snaked by my own. Oh, that was pretty cool. I was trying to do the punch and kick at the same time move, but I hit the... Oh, no, that is punch plus kick. No, wait. There's that guard plus kick. Yeah, I don't know. The art in it looks nice. I'm not into screen shake and like motion blur and camera sort of soft in and out that does give me motion sickness. So, I mean, I'd like to be able to say, oh, you know, whatever it is, I'll try it out, but man, it's like slow in, slow out camera movements. I'm gonna be one nauseous dude. Oh no. So I went from being super excited, thinking we're getting a brand new reinvention of the fighting game genre, finally, to thinking, oh no, it is just a Tekken-ification. The final Tekken-ification of Virtua Fighter, or the main Tekken-ification. But it'll at least look pretty. It'll have single-player stuff to do, I expect. Probably won't be out for until 2026. This is all just me making stuff up, of course. I don't actually know. Like I said, we only know that it's got Akira and this woman who looks like Sarah but isn't Sarah. And that's about it. But I think, in fact, that video was probably more of a prototype, really. I think it had the look of something that a team is producing early on as like a proof of concept, you know, like they're still working out the basics of how the game is gonna play, and so they're putting together some models and tests and animations to sort of work out different things and try different things. And they probably got to the point where they had one that you know looked pretty decent and kind of looked cool, and they're like, yeah, okay, we can just make a little teaser trailer of this, just don't show it too clearly because we don't, you know, it's still pretty rough. That's kind of about where it looks like it's at, which is still like really early in the life cycle of a game's design. So it'll probably be completely different by the time it actually comes out. Different than what we're seeing there. I mean, they're wrong. The character models actually looked fairly like those could be more or less final character models, but you know, that is some of the stuff you need at first is like well, that's not true because you might still be developing the animation system even, so who knows? I don't know. Pretty good looking character models anyway. I guess overall, I think, you know, just based on what they've done, I think this studio, the Ryuga Gotoku Studio, I have faith they can deliver a solid single player, I was gonna say action game, I guess a solid single player action game. I think they can do that. I mean, that's pretty much what the earlier Yakuza games were in theory, right? I'm less confident that it will be the type of action that I really get into, which is just this particular very snappy and clean style of action that you have in the AM2 Virtua Fighters. Because that's not really the kind of action that studio has done so far that we've seen, I don't think. Their stuff is a little more, I don't know, I don't want to say middle of the road because it's decent quality, but it's not. It doesn't have that arcade snap to it. At least that was not my impression when in the little bits I've played of their games. So, you know, who knows? That's not to say they couldn't get that feeling if they really went for it. Oh, the first-person view. Maybe they'll have a first-person view. I don't know, man. New Virtua Fighter Project, who knows? I think it is pretty much too early to say. I think probably they'll get a lot of feedback from this teaser they put out, and that will, even just that, will cause them to redo a bunch of stuff. And it's not like I don't think they have a bunch of stuff, really. I think they're still putting together the kind of basic style of the action and the game, and probably even the world, and probably even the character models, really. But I could be wrong. Maybe it'll come out tomorrow. I don't know. I just hope it's a fun game. If they do kind of make a more casual Virtua Fighter, I couldn't blame them for doing that. We'll always have the old Virtua Fighters. I mean, that's probably, well, yeah, one way of looking at it is that's maybe exactly why they're doing this Virtua Fighter 5 Revo, which is sort of maybe their last version of Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown, and the one that they're putting out on PC so that it'll always be there for people to play online, although I suppose it probably requires some kind of dedicated servers. But, and even that one is sort of a semi reboot by the Yakuza team, because they redid the graphics in sort of a more home console style, you know. But I would say that I do like the graphical style that we see in the little teaser. I like that more than the character face changes they made in Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. I didn't like those. So, like, graphically, I'm fine with the graphical style in it, except for maybe the camera shake and the motion blur. But again, it's just a teaser trailer they put together for visual effect. So, you know, that's not, and it's very early, I think. So, it'll be very different by the time it actually comes out, or even gets to the point where they're showing, like, you know, real gameplay footage. You know, and even if it is just kind of like I was going to say, even if it is just a Tekken-ification, because, like, the more I watched the animations in the very brief combat scene in the teaser, they kind of struck me as, you know, being maybe slightly rubbery. And you know, maybe slightly more cartoonish than a Virtua Fighter animation, which is sort of snappier. But again, that's a gross generalization. I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to Tekken. You know, and if it is more like that kind of game. You know, it might not be that bad, especially if it sticks to a Virtua Fighter control scheme. That the main problem I don't know. Maybe the main problem I have with Tekken games is that I can't get my head around the control scheme for whatever reason. Having a separate button for each limb, I don't know. My head just can't deal with that. I just end up like doing the same 3 moves. So I was actually thinking, like, this week, I was just thinking, should I like, dump my PS3 Tekken games and give those a whirl in RPCS3? Because I never really gave Tekken 6 like a real thorough try, really. Let's see, and I guess I was also, I didn't really, I think I only played Tekken Tag Tournament 2 once. And I really like the presentation in those games. I mean, they went all out on presentation. Their presentation is amazing. Maybe that tomato level in Tekken 6, that one kind of rubs me the wrong way, but the tomato sauce level. But yeah, then I was watching some of my old gameplay footage, and I was like, I don't really need to play those. Like, if I'm gonna spend my time on this earth playing a 3D fighting game, I think I'll stick to 3tb or Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown currently. So will new Virtua Fighter Project ever find its way into my heart? I don't know. I'm skeptical now of what we see in this teaser, but they've certainly got the graphics. That was another thing I was worrying about, though. Does this mean I'll have to get a new computer? So it'll look nice whatever happens. And if they do stick to like not having a bunch of flashy effects in it, that would be nice. That's another reason I kind of avoid Tekken. It's got so many flashing effects in it now. My old eyeballs can't deal. But yeah, I don't know. Oh wait, I gotta do a thing. Full frame buffer. Oh wait, did I have that on? Oh, I did have full frame buffer emulation on this whole time. It didn't seem slow. Maybe I'll just leave that on, because I'll forget anyway. I was just gonna go thinking of the wait, where is it? Is it under options or oh no, it's history. So heretofore, this is the most story we've had in a Virtua Fighter game. This thing that unlocks when you beat arcade mode in this. In a way, I guess just because of the fact that you're seeing these scenes back to back, it does make you feel much more like there's a cohesive world, and you could start to believe that maybe there's a story. And you don't really get that feeling when you're playing through arcade mode, of course. So could a Virtua Fighter with an actual story be cool? I don't know. Depends on how good the writing is, of course. Like, why is Pi breaking the glass on the portrait of her father? What's going on? Why? I want to know that. Maybe they'll resolve that. Maybe we'll get to see more of Leon's puppy. People were speculating that maybe this Stella person is like some kind of Dural Sarah Bryant hybrid or something. Which, you know, I wouldn't put it past any game developer to do something like that. What else do they really have to work with, story-wise, for VF? I mean, what we thought we knew was that Dural was, I don't remember his name, you know, the ninja guy's mom or whatever, kind of turned into a robot thing, right? Something like that. I don't know. Of course, there's like the anime, but I don't know if that's really considered super canonical. Canonical? I've never seen the much of the anime. Alright, well, I'm gonna go and probably worry about this Virtua Fighter new project for the next year or so until we actually see what it is and what they're doing. But we'll always have the old Virtua Fighters, so it's not like those are gonna get deleted off all of our machines. It'll be fine. And if it does turn out to be a fun new game, then hey, bonus. At least Sega are trying something instead of just regurgitating Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown endlessly. I mean, we still got that last one of those coming, but you know, whatever, that's fine now. I don't mind that so much now. And I was a pessimist. I didn't believe they were really gonna do more Virtua Fighter beyond that, but hey, they're feeling themselves. They're going nuts. They're going for it. That's how I was thinking, man, Sega, they're reinventing, it had to be Sega to reinvent the fighting genre again. They did it with VF1, they're gonna do it with this reboot VF1, but I'm thinking, well, maybe not so much that, but maybe it'll still be a cool game. Like people are saying, well, people from this teaser are thinking this, a game like this could get people into Virtua Fighter. Because, well, from my point of view, Virtua Fighter just got so hardcore oriented after 3TB. 3TB was still fairly manageable, but when you get to 4, the move lists just mushroomed into these massive things, and the gameplay systems you had to be able to handle just increased pretty significantly, and it was just suddenly a much more hardcore technical game. I mean, 3TB is still pretty hardcore and technical, but that's nothing compared to VF4, you know. And then it went up more and more each new version after that, and I think it was still blown a little out of proportion, right? Like VF5 Final Showdown is not unmanageable if you give it a shot, but it just acquired this reputation of being so complicated that people didn't even give it a try anymore. And it wasn't doing anything in terms of single-player content, aside from quest mode, which was cool, but that was kind of a filler, really, right? It was a filler for, well, we don't want to do a story, I think they just didn't want to do a story. They just didn't. They didn't think that was fit Virtua Fighter. And I can see that. But more casual players, they could see that. They could see that, well, this doesn't have a lot of stuff that I can to keep me occupied single player wise, so why would I even try to get into it? And I understand that it's kind of a technical game, so why would I even bother, Whereas maybe if they knew it had 25 hours of single player silly story stuff to mess with, like your Tekken games or whatever, then they would have given it more of a shot. Okay, I'm gonna go and I don't know, think doubtful thoughts or hopeful thoughts, depending on what side of the bed I wake up on, about this new Virtua Fighter game. But I've got plenty of Virtua Fighter to keep me happy between this and Final Showdown. But if another awesome Virtua Fighter game comes along, I wouldn't mind. And if it's just kind of a, more of a sort of light action button mash romp with Virtua Fighter characters, it can still be fun to play through. Again, it's all kind of, at this point, it's all kind of just gravy, cream, I don't know, I guess it's all just a bonus, so hey, anyway, thanks for watching and listening to my stupid, completely fact-less, no basis, made up rambling about whatever this new Virtua Fighter is going to turn out to be. I will link to a video that has the 3D model pan-arounds of the two characters and the sort of a blown up to full screen view of the little action sequence that they showed from the Game Awards trailer or whatever, the teaser. I'll have a link to that in the description under the video on YouTube. So check that out. Let me know what you think. And it'll be interesting. I hope it. Well, I'm not even gonna get my hopes up that it'll be some kind of revolutionary fighting system. I think it probably will be a little more like a just sort of sped up action game. But hey, could still be fun. And maybe it will be, but again, it's way too early. I mean, it'll change completely over the development cycle, I think. So we'll see, months from now what it's actually going to be or what it's going to turn into. Until then, I'm just going to play this and Final Showdown, and probably even after that I'll be playing this in Final Showdown, because these games are fun. They're old, but they'll always be fun. Okay, bye.